Have you ever tossed something into your cart only to get home and think, why on earth did I buy this? If that sounds familiar, trust me, you're in good company. Let's talk about 15 grocery items that really just don't make much sense to purchase. These are the kinds of products that drain your wallet without giving much back in return. Stick with me as we break down where your hard-earned money might quietly be slipping through the cracks. Let's kick things off with something you've definitely seen in the produce aisle: pre-cut fruits and vegetables. These neatly packaged, already sliced options are basically a magnet for convenience seekers. You know the ones: clear plastic tubs filled with slightly wilted melon chunks or a handful of carrot sticks, priced like they're some kind of luxury item. Somehow, that small container costs more than a month of your favorite streaming service. Here's the honest reality: when you buy pre-cut produce, you're often paying 2 or even 3 times the price just to avoid spending 5 minutes with a knife at your own kitchen counter. It's almost like hiring someone to lace up your sneakers because bending down feels like too much effort. And the downsides don't stop at the price. The second fruits and vegetables are sliced open, they begin losing nutrients. Exposure to air speeds up the breakdown process, so by the time you actually eat them, they're already missing a noticeable portion of their original health benefits. On top of that, they spoil much faster. Have you ever opened a container of pineapple pieces after a couple of days, only to find them brown, mushy, and slightly slimy? Exactly. Then there's the packaging. All that single-use plastic just for a bit of convenience. Every time one of those containers hits the trash, it's hard not to imagine the planet giving you a disappointed look. And unfortunately, this is just the beginning. There are plenty of other items that quietly slip into your cart and practically announce, I have no idea how budgeting works. Let's move on to another subtle wallet drainer hiding in plain sight. Let's be real for a second. Why are you still buying bottled water when clean tap water is already flowing straight into your kitchen? That $2 bottle you grab at the store? It costs roughly a fraction of a penny to fill the same amount from your own sink. When you actually run the numbers, bottled water can be as much as 2,000 times more expensive than what comes out of your faucet. 2,000 times. Let that sink in. And here's something most people don't realize. More than half of those sleek, premium, bottled water brands are simply filtered municipal tap water. That's it. They could just as easily package up a bag of air and market it as a luxury breathing upgrade. If you're worried about taste or quality, a basic home filtration system runs about $30 and can save you hundreds of dollars a year compared to constantly buying single-use bottles. It's a one-time purchase that keeps paying you back. Then there's the environmental side of it. In the United States alone, over 60 million plastic water bottles get tossed out every single day. Every single day. That's a staggering amount of waste for something you can access at home almost for free. Here's another important detail. Tap water in most areas is not only safe but regulated under stricter standards than bottled water. The EPA monitors and tests public drinking water frequently, while bottled water falls under FDA oversight, which typically involves less rigorous testing. So in many cases, the water from your tap is actually held to higher safety standards. Spending extra on bottled water is already hard to justify, but just wait. The next item people love to overpay for is bright, eye-catching, and designed to grab your attention the second you walk down the aisle. Those bright cereal boxes covered in cartoon mascots are designed to grab your attention instantly. But have you ever stopped and really checked what's inside? A lot of popular name-brand cereals are made up of 40 to 50% sugar by weight. That's not a wholesome breakfast. That's dessert dressed up in the costume of health food. Take a look at the ingredient list sometime. More often than not, sugar shows up before any type of grain. At that point, you might as well dump a bowl of candy sprinkles and pretend it's part of a balanced morning routine. Meanwhile, your pancreas is working overtime before you've even finished your first serving. What's even more frustrating is the marketing spin. These boxes are covered in phrases like whole grain and fortified with essential vitamins, carefully placed to distract you from the fact that you're basically eating candy for breakfast. The branding is so polished they could probably sell ice to polar bears and rename it Premium Hydration Crystals. Then comes the inevitable crash. By mid-morning, your blood sugar drops fast, and suddenly you're starving again. And that's no accident. The sooner you're hungry, the sooner you reach for another bowl. Here's the kicker. Store-brand versions often contain nearly identical ingredients but cost $2 to $3 less per box. Flavor-wise, most people can barely tell the difference. The real distinction is that you're no longer paying extra for a cartoon tiger or cheerful bird to convince you it's a smart choice. While we're on the topic of junk food pretending to be nutritious, let's talk about granola bars. Have you ever tossed one into your cart thinking, hey, this is a smart, healthy snack? It might be time for a little wake-up call. A lot of those so-called wholesome granola bars are basically candy bars hiding behind earthy colors and rustic packaging. They look healthy, but that's where the illusion ends. In fact, many granola or energy bars contain more sugar than an actual candy bar. The average one packs around 15 to 20 grams of sugar. That's roughly 4 to 5 teaspoons crammed into a snack you can finish in seconds. At that point, they might as well relabel them as portable sugar sticks and call it a day. What's especially sneaky is how manufacturers scatter different types of sweeteners throughout the ingredient list. You'll see names like honey, brown rice syrup, cane juice, and agave nectar. It sounds better, sure, but it's all sugar dressed up in different costumes at the same event. And don't get fooled by the buzzwords stamped across the wrapper. Terms like energy, natural, and wholesome sound reassuring, but they don't have strict legal definitions. They're marketing language, not nutritional guarantees. Companies can lean heavily on those words without actually improving what's inside the package. Then there's the calorie-to-satisfaction ratio. You're looking at around 250 calories in something that disappears in 3 bites. An hour later, your stomach is rumbling again, and you're hunting for another snack. For something marketed as fuel, it doesn't last very long. Take a look at those neatly wrapped orange squares sitting in your refrigerator. Notice how the label says cheese product instead of simply cheese? That wording isn't accidental. There are legal standards for what can officially be called cheese, and these slices don't quite make the cut. If you skim the ingredient list, it sounds less like something from a dairy farm and more like a lab formula. You'll find vegetable oils, preservatives, artificial coloring, and somewhere in the mix, a small amount of actual dairy. In many ways, those slices resemble a processed food experiment more than something that came from milk. Honestly, they might have a shelf life that rivals plastic. When you melt real cheese, it becomes rich, smooth, and full of flavor. This processed version, it liquefies into a glossy orange paste that sticks to the roof of your mouth in a way that feels more engineered than natural. And yet, it keeps landing in shopping carts because it's quick and easy. Here's the surprising part. Per ounce, these imitation slices can cost more than genuine cheese. So you're often spending extra money for something with lower nutritional value and a flavor that doesn't even compare. The taste difference isn't subtle, it's dramatic. It's almost as if someone tried to recreate cheese from memory using food dye and industrial ingredients. And since we're calling out products that don't quite live up to their image, there's another grocery item waiting in the aisle that claims convenience, but doesn't exactly deliver on value. Now let's talk about bagged salad mixes. The go-to choice for anyone who wants to eat healthier, but doesn't feel like rinsing and chopping a full head of lettuce. These pricey little bags of pre-cut greens come with more than just a steep markup. For starters, those triple-washed leaves are typically rinsed in chlorine-based or other chemical solutions before they ever hit the shelf. The label proudly says, ready to eat, but a more honest version might read, best enjoyed before it turns slimy in 3 days. Do the comparison. A whole head of lettuce usually runs about $2 and can stay fresh for more than a week if stored properly. Meanwhile, that small bag of chopped greens often costs nearly double and starts wilting before you've even made it through half of it. The lifespan of those mixes is impressively short. Blink, and they're browning. Then there's the packaging. All that plastic waste just to save yourself 30 seconds at the sink. It's convenience at the cost of both your wallet and the environment. And let's be honest about the portion size. Each bag holds just enough greens to make you feel like you've made a healthy choice, but not enough to stretch very far. By the time you unload your groceries at home, those fragile leaves are already on their way to becoming a soggy brown mess in the crisper drawer. Let's continue our tour of grocery store money traps with a fruit that really makes you question certain organic labels. Organic bananas. At some point, bananas started wearing fancy organic stickers, as if they needed an upgrade to earn a spot in your cart. But here's the honest truth. Organic bananas are often one of the least necessary splurges in the entire produce aisle. Think about it. Bananas already come with their own natural protective layer. That thick peel you toss in the trash, it acts as built-in packaging. Since you don't eat the peel, it already serves as a barrier between the fruit and most external pesticide exposure. Research consistently shows that very little residue, if any, actually reaches the inside of the banana. And yet, organic bananas can cost up to 70% more than their conventional counterparts. So what are you really paying for? In many cases, just a small sticker that ends up in the garbage along with the peel. Nutritionally, they're nearly identical. Flavor-wise, most people can't tell the difference. The only noticeable change tends to be how much lighter your wallet feels after you check out. Now, let's shift gears. The next item may seem harmless sitting beside your morning coffee, but once you look closer at what's actually in it, you might start seeing it differently. Take a look at those bright, eye-catching bottles of flavored coffee creamer lined up in the dairy aisle. They promise to transform your morning cup into something indulgent. But if you actually read the ingredient list, the story changes fast. Despite being called creamer, most of them don't contain any real cream at all. Instead, they're typically a blend of water, sugar, and processed vegetable oils. Just 2 tablespoons can add 6 to 8 grams of sugar to your coffee without you even noticing. That's not enhancing your drink. It's quietly turning it into a sugar delivery system. Your simple cup of coffee suddenly comes with what feels like metabolic training wheels. And those tempting flavors, think dessert-inspired options like cinnamon cereal or chocolate candy bar, are almost entirely artificial. Scan the label and you'll find artificial flavorings, added colors, preservatives, and thickening agents. The word non-dairy often gives the impression that it's a lighter or healthier alternative, but in reality, many of these products are loaded with refined oils and corn syrup. Then there's the shelf life. Some of these creamers can sit unopened for months without spoiling. When something is so stable that bacteria won't go near it, that might be worth thinking about before pouring it into your body every morning. And since we're exposing pantry staples that quietly chip away at your budget, let's move on to another everyday item that drains your wallet faster than you can sprinkle it on your food. Have you ever stopped to figure out what those tiny glass jars of spices are actually costing you per ounce? The answer might surprise you. In many cases, they're priced higher than premium cuts of steak when you break it down by weight. It's not unusual to pay $5 for a small bottle of oregano or basil that contains less than an ounce. And here's the frustrating part. Most of it ends up sitting in your cabinet, barely touched, while the flavor slowly fades away. Dried herbs and ground spices start losing their strength after about 6 months. So by the time you've used half the jar, what's left has the punch of flavored dust. You might joke that your spice rack will become a family heirloom, but let's be honest, nobody wants to inherit decade-old nutmeg. Savvy shoppers know there's a better way. Buying from bulk bins lets you scoop exactly the amount you need, no more, no less. The savings can be dramatic, often 80 to 90% cheaper than those pre-packaged bottles. You're paying for the contents, not the branding and the glass container. And speaking of overpriced kitchen pitfalls, the freezer aisle has its own sneaky expense waiting for anyone trying to make healthy choices. Lately, the freezer section has been overflowing with trendy, pre-portioned smoothie packs that promise convenience and health in one colorful bag. But if you pause and really examine what's inside, it's mostly chopped fruit mixed with ice. And you're still the one who has to toss it in the blender. These eye-catching packs usually run between $6 and $8, and for that price, you're getting roughly 2 cups of frozen fruit and fillers. A surprising portion of the bag is just ice. Somehow, once water is frozen and packaged attractively, it starts selling for what feels like $4 a cup. It gets better. Many of these smoothie kits sneak in added sweeteners or lower-quality juice concentrates to improve the taste of fruit that may not be the freshest or most flavorful. If you scan the ingredient list, you'll often spot added sugars disguised as fruit juice concentrate. It sounds wholesome, but it's still extra sugar. The reality is you could easily buy fresh fruit yourself and freeze it for a fraction of the cost. A single bag of frozen berries, 1 banana, and a handful of greens can stretch into multiple smoothies, all for about the same price as one of those pre-made packs. You'd get more servings, better control over the ingredients, and far more value for your money. Now, let's move away from the freezer and head over to the cabinet under your sink, where another quiet budget drain is sitting right in plain view: Those brightly packaged cleaning products with names like Spring Meadow or Mountain Breeze aren't just freshening up your kitchen, they're quietly draining your wallet too. Here's what the big name brands rarely advertise. The actual cleaning ingredients in premium and store brand products are often almost identical. Take bleach, for example. It's typically just sodium hypochlorite at around a 5 to 6% concentration. Whether you spend $1.99 on the generic version or $4.99 on the bottle with the friendly mascot and shiny label, the disinfecting power is basically the same. What you're really paying extra for is branding and marketing. Those companies pour millions into glossy commercials featuring spotless homes that look like no one has ever cooked a meal in them. But that advertising budget doesn't magically improve the formula inside the bottle. In many cases, store-brand cleaners are produced in the very same factories as the name-brand versions. Research consistently shows that generic options perform just as effectively, even though they cost 40 to 50% less. The main difference is how much lighter your bank account feels after checkout. Now that we've scrubbed away the hype around cleaning supplies, let's head back to the produce section, because there's another salad-related expense waiting there, ready to sneak into your cart. Let's talk about pre-made salad kits. The go-to option for busy shoppers who want to check the healthy box without putting in any real effort. You're usually paying $6 to $8 for one of these bags. And what's inside? A modest pile of slightly wilted lettuce, a small packet of dressing packed with sugar, a dusting of cheese, and maybe 3 or 4 croutons if you're lucky. When you break it down, these kits can cost 3 times more than buying the same ingredients separately. The base is almost always the cheapest lettuce available, typically iceberg, which offers about as much nutritional value as lightly moistened paper. That tiny sprinkle of shredded cheese wouldn't satisfy a mouse trying to cut calories. And those premium toppings highlighted on the front of the bag? You might need a magnifying glass to locate them once you pour everything out. Most of these kits contain less than 3 ounces of actual vegetables, yet they're marketed as if they qualify as a full meal. Meanwhile, the dressing packet alone can contain more calories than the greens themselves, often delivering 10 to 12 grams of sugar in just a few squeezes. And if you think that's misleading, wait until we step into the dairy aisle, because the next item might be the sneakiest one yet. Take a look at that bag of pre-shredded cheese sitting in your refrigerator. It seems convenient, but there's more going on inside that package than most people realize. To keep all those little strands from clumping together, manufacturers add anti-caking agents. The most common one is cellulose powder, which is basically processed plant fiber, often derived from wood pulp. So yes, in a roundabout way, you're paying extra to sprinkle something close to sawdust onto your tacos. These additives don't just sit there harmlessly, they actually interfere with how the cheese performs. Because those powders are designed to prevent sticking, they also keep the cheese from melting smoothly. Instead of turning into that creamy, stretchy layer you expect, it can become grainy or separate. On top of that, shredding increases the surface area exposed to air, which means the cheese dries out faster and loses flavor more quickly than a solid block would. And let's not forget the price difference. That convenient resealable bag can cost 30 to 50% more per ounce than buying a block and shredding it yourself. You're essentially paying a premium for added fillers and less satisfying results. If you think that's questionable value, wait until we talk about the next grocery store trick. This one takes the idea of convenience pricing to a whole new level of ridiculous. Those tiny chip bags, miniature cookie packs, and snack-sized pretzel pouches might look harmless, but they could be some of the most overpriced air you'll ever purchase. When you compare the cost per ounce, these single-serve snacks are often nearly double the price of the full-size versions. For example, you might pay $3 for an 8-ounce regular bag of chips. Meanwhile, a convenient multi-pack of 6 mini bags can run $4, and together, they only add up to about 4 ounces total. You're spending more money for less food, all wrapped up in extra packaging. They market this as portion control, but it might as well be called wallet control, because it definitely speeds up how fast your cash disappears. And let's be honest, those portions are so small that finishing one bag rarely feels satisfying. Instead, you're reaching for a second pouch 5 minutes later. One mini bag becomes the warm-up act for the next. All that added packaging, less product, and a higher price tag, just for the illusion of convenience. And if you thought the produce section was done playing tricks on you, think again. There's one more vegetable-related money grab hiding in plain sight. We opened this list by calling out pre-cut fruit, but honestly, the vegetable aisle deserves its own spotlight. Those neatly packaged tubs of chopped onions, minced garlic, or sliced celery look like they'll save you time. But what they really save is effort at the expense of your budget. Take diced onions, for example. A small container can cost around $3, while a whole onion sitting right next to it is often under $1. That's sometimes a four-fold markup just so you can skip a few minutes with a knife. And the quality? It drops fast. Once vegetables are cut, they start losing flavor and freshness almost immediately. That pre-minced garlic floating in oil might be convenient, but the taste is usually dull and muted, nothing like freshly chopped cloves. It's garlic in appearance more than in impact. On top of that, many pre-cut vegetables are treated with preservatives to extend their shelf life, which means extra additives in something that's supposed to be simple, fresh produce. Even then, they don't last long. Pre-sliced bell peppers can turn slippery and unpleasant within a couple of days, while whole peppers often stay crisp for a week or more. At the end of the day, awareness is your biggest advantage. When you know where the markups and shortcuts are hiding, you can make better choices, stretch your grocery budget further, and steer clear of these 15 unnecessary spending traps.